The police station's fluorescent lights buzzed like a swarm of angry wasps, casting a sterile glow over Elena's trembling hands. She sat on a cold metal chair, her heart pounding so loud she swore the walls could hear it. Across from her, Clara's blue eyes burned with defiance, but the quiver in her lip betrayed her fear. It was supposed to be a quiet night. Just the two of them stealing a moment at the edge of Willow Creek, a small town in upstate New York where whispers traveled faster than the wind. Elena, 28, had always been the bold one, her cropped chestnut hair and leather jacket a quiet rebellion against the town's prying eyes. Clara, 26, was softer, her long blonde hair and gentle smile a beacon of warmth, but her spine was steel when it mattered. They'd been together for a year, their love a secret tucked away in stolen glances and late-night drives. But tonight, their secret had been ripped open. Started with a kiss. A single, fleeting kiss under the oak tree by the creek, where the water shimmered under the moonlight. They thought they were alone. They weren't. A passerby, some nosy local with a grudge, had seen them, called the cops, and spun a story about public indecency. Now here they were, cuffed and hauled into the Willow Creek police station, accused of something that wasn't a crime but felt like one in a town that clung to outdated values. The officer who'd arrested them, a burly man named Jenkins with a sneer that could curdle milk, leaned against the desk, his voice dripping with disdain. "You two think you can just flaunt that nonsense in our town?" he spat, his eyes raking over them like they were dirt on his boots. Elena clenched her fists, her knuckles white. Clara reached for her hand under the table, a silent promise. "We're in this together." The holding room was small, its walls a sickly green that seemed to close in with every passing second. The clock ticked mercilessly, each second a reminder of their humiliation. Elena's mind raced. How had a moment of love turned into this? She thought of her mother, who'd warned her to keep it quiet when she came out at 19. She thought of Clara's father, a pastor who'd disowned her when she told him the truth. They'd both fought so hard to carve out a life together, and now it felt like the world was punishing them for it. A second officer, a younger man named Carter, stood by the door, his face unreadable. He hadn't said much, but his eyes flickered with something, sympathy maybe? Or pity? Elena couldn't tell. She didn't care. All she knew was the burning in her chest, the rage at being treated like a criminal for loving someone. Clara's fingers tightened around hers, grounding her, pulling her back from the edge. "You don't have to say anything," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the lights. "They want us to break." "We won't." Elena nodded, but her throat was tight. She wanted to scream, to tear down the walls of this suffocating room. Instead, she held Clara's gaze, finding strength in those blue eyes that had seen her through so many storms. They'd met at a bookstore in Albany, bonding over dog-eared copies of Virginia Woolf and overpriced coffee. Elena had been drawn to Clara's quiet courage, the way she could light up a room without trying. Clara had said Elena's fire made her feel alive. Now that fire was being tested. The door swung open, and a new officer stepped in. She was tall, with sharp features and dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her badge read Officer Reyes. Unlike Jenkins, her expression wasn't cruel, but it wasn't warm either. She carried a clipboard, her movements precise, like she was trying to maintain control in a room thick with tension. "Elena Martinez and Clara Thompson," Reyes said, her voice calm but firm. "You're being held for questioning regarding a complaint of public indecency. I need your statements." Elena's jaw tightened. "We kissed." "That's it." "Since when is that a crime?" Reyes didn't flinch. "It's not about the kiss. It's about the complaint. You're in a small town. People talk." "People talk," Clara echoed, her voice sharp. "And that gives them the right to drag us here like we're criminals?" Reyes met Clara's gaze, and for a moment, something flickered in her eyes, something human. But she quickly looked down at her clipboard, scribbling a note. "I'm just doing my job. Let's keep this civil." "Civil?" Elena snapped, leaning forward. "You call this civil? Handcuffing us for loving each other? You know what this is. It's hate, plain and simple." Jenkins, still leaning against the desk, snorted. "Keep talking, Martinez. You're not making this any easier on yourselves." Reyes shot Jenkins a look sharp enough to cut glass. "Enough, Jenkins. Let me handle this." The air in the room shifted. Jenkins straightened, his sneer faltering for a split second. Elena noticed it and so did Clara. Reyes wasn't like the others. There was something about her. Something that made Elena's gut tell her this woman wasn't entirely on the side of the small-minded locals. As Reyes asked routine questions, names, addresses, occupations, Elena studied her. She was in her early 30s, with a quiet intensity that suggested she'd seen her share of battles. Her hands moved with purpose, but there was a slight tremor when she wrote, like she was holding something back. Elena wondered what it was. A secret? A story? Whatever it was, it made her different from Jenkins and Carter. Clara answered the questions with a steady voice, her poise a quiet rebellion against the chaos around them. She worked as a librarian, her days spent surrounded by books and the kids who came to her story hours. Elena, a mechanic, was used to getting her hands dirty, fixing cars, and ignoring the whispers about her unladylike job. They were opposites in so many ways, but their love had always bridged the gap. Now it was their lifeline. When Reyes finished, she set the clipboard down and looked at them, her expression unreadable. "You'll be held here until we process the complaint. It's standard procedure." "Standard procedure for what?" Elena asked, her voice low but fierce. "For being us?" Reyes didn't answer. Instead, she turned and left the room, the door clicking shut behind her. Jenkins smirked, clearly enjoying their discomfort. "Get comfortable, ladies. You're not going anywhere tonight." As the hours dragged on, Elena and Clara sat in silence, their hands still clasped under the table. The weight of the night pressed down on them, but so did their resolve. They weren't just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for every moment they'd built together. Every dream they dared to dream in a world that didn't always want them to. Outside, the town of Willow Creek slept, oblivious to the battle unfolding in its police station. But inside, a spark had been lit, one that would soon burn brighter than anyone could have imagined. The holding room felt smaller with every tick of the clock, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and disinfectant. Elena's leg bounced under the table, her nerves fraying like an old rope. Clara, ever the calm in their storm, traced circles on Elena's palm, a silent reminder to breathe. They hadn't spoken much since Reyes left. Words felt too heavy, too risky in a room where every sound seemed to echo back to Jenkins' smug grin. He'd left them alone for now, but his presence lingered like a bad dream. Carter, the younger officer, was still by the door, his eyes darting between them and the floor. Elena caught him looking at Clara once, his expression softening, but he quickly looked away, as if ashamed of his own curiosity. Elena leaned closer to Clara, her voice a whisper. "You think they're listening?" Clara's lips curved into a faint smile, defiant despite the circumstances. "Let them. They won't hear anything we don't want them to." Elena admired that about Clara, her ability to hold her ground, even when the world seemed determined to knock her down. It was what had drawn her to Clara that first day in the bookstore, when Clara had laughed at one of Elena's sarcastic comments about a poorly written romance novel. That laugh had been a spark, igniting something Elena hadn't known she was capable of feeling. Now that spark was being tested. The complaint against them was flimsy public indecency for a kiss? It was laughable, but in Willow Creek, where tradition ruled and outsiders were suspect, it was enough to land them here. Elena's mind replayed the moment by the creek, Clara's lips soft against hers, the world fading away until it was just them. Then the headlights, the shouts, the rough hands pulling them apart. She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. The door opened again and Reyes returned, this time alone. She carried a tray with 2 styrofoam cups of water, and set it on the table without a word. Elena raised an eyebrow. "What's this, hospitality?" Reyes didn't smile, but her eyes softened slightly. "You've been here for hours. Drink." Clara took a cup, her movements deliberate, like she was refusing to let the situation strip her of dignity. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady but laced with something sharp. "But we shouldn't be here at all." Reyes nodded, almost imperceptibly. "I know." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Elena leaned forward, her voice low. "Then why are we? You know this is bullshit. Jenkins is just flexing his power because he can." Reyes glanced at the door, then back at them. "Jenkins has influence here. The complainant is a councilman's wife. She's got the town's ear, and Jenkins is eating it up." Clara's eyes narrowed. So we're pawns in some small-town power trip? Reyes didn't answer directly. Instead, she pulled a chair and sat across from them, her posture rigid but her gaze steady. I need you to understand something. This town is not kind to people like you. Or me. Elena's breath caught. People like you. Or me. The words were a crack in Reyes' armor. A glimpse of something raw. Was she? Elena didn't dare ask, not yet. But the seed was planted, and it gave her a flicker of hope. What's your deal, Reyes? Elena asked, her tone softer now, probing. You don't seem like you belong with these assholes. Reyes' jaw tightened, and for a moment Elena thought she'd pushed too far. But then Reyes spoke, her voice low, measured. I grew up here. I know what it's like to feel different. I joined the force to make things better, not to play along with people like Jenkins. But it's not that simple. Clara leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. Then make it simple. You see what's happening here. You can do something. Reyes looked at Clara, and something passed between the man, understanding maybe, or a challenge. Before she could respond, the door burst open and Jenkins stormed in, his face red with irritation. Reyes, what the hell are you doing? You're not here to chat with these deviants. His voice dripped with venom, and Elena felt Clara tense beside her. Reyes stood, her movements calm but deliberate. I'm getting their statements, Jenkins. That's my job. Your job, Jenkins sneered, stepping closer, is to follow orders, not to play nice with people who don't belong here. Elena's blood boiled. Don't belong? We live here, same as you. What gives you the right to decide who belongs? Jenkins turned on her, his face inches from hers. Watch your mouth, Martinez. You're in enough trouble as it is. Clara's hand shot out, grabbing Elena's arm, pulling her back. Don't, she whispered, her eyes pleading. But Elena was done being silent. No, Clara. I'm not letting this guy treat us like garbage. She stood, her chair scraping against the floor. You want to talk about trouble, Jenkins? You're the one abusing your power. You think you can scare us into hiding who we are? You're wrong. Jenkins' face twisted into a snarl, but before he could respond, Reyes stepped between them, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Enough. Jenkins, back off. Now. The room went silent. Even Carter, still by the door, looked stunned. Jenkins blinked, clearly not used to being challenged. You're out of line, Reyes, he growled, but he took a step back. Reyes didn't flinch. I said back off. I'm handling this. For a moment it seemed like Jenkins might push back, but something in Reyes' stare made him hesitate. He muttered something under his breath and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Carter followed, casting one last glance at Reyes before disappearing. Elena let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. You've got some guts, she said, her voice tinged with respect. Reyes didn't respond. Instead, she sat back down, her hands clasped tightly on the table. This isn't over, she said quietly. Jenkins won't let this go, and neither will the councilman's wife. But I'm not your enemy here. Clara studied her, her blue eyes searching. Then what are you? Reyes hesitated, then met Clara's gaze. Someone who's trying to do the right thing. But I need you to trust me. Trust. The word felt like a gamble in a place like this. But as Elena looked at Reyes, then at Clara, she felt that spark again, the one that had kept them fighting all this time. Maybe, just maybe, Reyes was the ally they needed. The night stretched on, each minute heavier than the last. Elena's anger simmered, but Clara's steady presence kept it from boiling over. They sat in silence, the water cups untouched, the room's oppressive walls seeming to pulse with the weight of their situation. Reyes hadn't returned since her standoff with Jenkins, and the absence of her quiet authority left a void. Carter was back at the door, his posture stiff, like he was trying to disappear into the background. Elena caught his eye once and he looked away, his face a mix of guilt and uncertainty. She wondered what he was thinking, whether he was just following orders or if he, too, was starting to question the absurdity of this night. Clara leaned her head against Elena's shoulder, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you think she meant it? About doing the right thing? Elena wanted to believe it. Reyes had stood up to Jenkins, something no one else in this station seemed willing to do. But trust was hard to come by in a town that had already judged them guilty. I don't know, she admitted. But she's not like the others. I can feel it. Clara nodded, her hair brushing against Elena's cheek. I just want to go home. To our place, our books, our life. The image of their small apartment flashed in Elena's mind, the cozy space filled with Clara's bookshelves and Elena's toolbox, the couch where they'd spent countless nights tangled in each other's arms. Felt like a lifetime ago, not just hours. She squeezed Clara's hand. We'll get there. I promise. The door opened and Rhea stepped back in, her face unreadable but her eyes sharp with purpose. She carried a folder now, its edges worn, like it had been pulled from a dusty archive. She sat across from them, her movements deliberate, and opened the folder, revealing a stack of papers. I've been looking into the complaint, Rhea said, her voice low, as if she didn't want anyone outside the room to hear. It's weak. No evidence, just the word of Mrs. Hargrove, the councilman's wife. She claims she saw lewd behavior, but there's no video, no witnesses willing to corroborate. This should have been dismissed hours ago. Elena's heart leapt, but she kept her guard up. So why hasn't it? Rhea sighed, her fingers tapping the folder. Because Jenkins is buddies with Hargrove. And Hargrove runs this town. They're using you to make a point scare anyone who doesn't fit their mold. Clara's voice was soft but firm. And you're okay with that? Rhea's eyes flickered with something, anger maybe, or shame. No, I'm not. But I'm one officer in a system that's been broken for years. I've seen what happens when you push back too hard, too fast. Elena leaned forward, her voice sharp. So what, we just sit here and take it? Let them humiliate us to prove a point. Ray shook her head. I'm working on something. But I need time and I need you to stay calm. If you give Jenkins an excuse to escalate this, he will. Clara's hand tightened around Elena's, a silent plea for restraint. Elena bit back her retort, nodding reluctantly. Fine. But we're not staying here all night. Reyes gave a small nod, then stood, tucking the folder under her arm. I'll be back. Stay put. As the door closed, Elena turned to Clara, her voice a whisper. She's hiding something. I can tell. Clara's eyes were thoughtful. Maybe she's hiding who she is. Like we did before we stopped caring what people thought. The words hit Elena like a punch. She remembered the years of hiding, pretending to date men, avoiding questions about her roommate. Clara had been braver, coming out to her family despite the cost. Elena had followed her lead, finding courage in their love. If Reyes was hiding something similar, maybe she was more than just an ally. Maybe she was one of them. Hours passed, the night blurring into a haze of exhaustion and tension. Carter brought them sandwiches at one point, mumbling something about orders. They ate in silence, the food tasteless but necessary. Elena's mind kept turning to Reyes, her sharp eyes, her quiet defiance. What was she planning? And could they trust her to follow through? The door opened again and Jenkins stormed in, his face a storm cloud. You two must feel real special getting all this attention, he sneered, pacing the room like a caged animal. But let me tell you something, people like you don't get to waltz into our town and make a mockery of our values. Elena's temper flared, but Clara's hand on her arm kept her grounded. Values? Clara said, her voice calm but cutting. You mean hate? Because that's all this is. You're punishing us for existing. Jenkins' face reddened, but before he could respond, the door opened again and Reyes stepped in, her presence like a sudden calm in the storm. Jenkins, you're needed at the front desk. Now. Her tone left no room for argument. Jenkins shot her a glare but obeyed, muttering under his breath as he left. Reyes turned to Elena and Clara, her voice low. I've got a plan, but it's risky. If it works, you're out of here by morning. If it doesn't, things could get worse. Elena's heart raced. What's the plan? Reyes hesitated, then leaned closer. I'm going to confront Hargrove directly. Her complaint is all they've got, and I think I can get her to back off. But I need you to trust me. Clara's eyes searched Reyes. Why are you doing this? Risking your job for us? Reyes looked away, her jaw tight. Because I know what it's like to be on the outside. And I'm tired of watching people like Jenkins win. The words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Elena felt a surge of hope but also fear. Reyes was putting herself on the line for them, and in a town like Willow Creek, that was no small thing. As Reyes left the room, Elena pulled Clara close, their foreheads touching. "We're going to be okay," Elena whispered, more to herself than to Clara. But as Clara's arms wrapped around her, she felt the truth of it. They were stronger together, no matter what this town threw at them. Dawn was breaking, painting the police station's windows with streaks of pale gold. Elena and Clara hadn't slept, their bodies aching from the hard chairs, their minds buzzing with the weight of Reyes' promise. The room felt like a pressure cooker. Every sound amplified the hum of the lights, the distant murmur of voices, the creak of Carter's boots as he shifted by the door. Elena's thoughts kept circling back to Reyes. She'd seen the fire in her eyes, the way she'd stood up to Jenkins. But confronting Mrs. Hargrove? That was a bold move even for someone with Reyes' steel. Hargrove was the kind of woman who held Willow Creek in her grip, her influence woven into every church meeting and town hall. If Reyes failed, they'd all pay the price. Clara's head rested on Elena's shoulder, her breathing steady despite the chaos. "You think she can do it?" Clara asked, her voice soft but laced with hope. Elena kissed the top of her head, drawing strength from the warmth of her. "If anyone can, it's her. She's got something to prove." The door opened and Reyes stepped in, her face pale but resolute. She carried no folder this time, just a small notepad, her knuckles white around the pen. "I spoke to Hargrove," she said, her voice low. "She's reconsidering her complaint." Elena's heart skipped. Reconsidering? What does that mean? Reyes sat, her eyes scanning the room as if checking for eavesdroppers. "It means I got through to her. I told her the truth, that this complaint is baseless, and pursuing it could backfire. She's worried about her reputation if this blows up. But she's not backing down easily. She wants an apology." Clara's eyes widened. "An apology? For what?" "Existing." Reyes' lips pressed into a thin line. "I know it's unfair, but it's the fastest way to get you out of here. If you refuse, Jenkins and Hargrove will drag this out, maybe even push for charges." Elena's fists clenched. "You're asking us to grovel to that woman? After everything?" "I'm asking you to play the game," Reyes said, her voice steady but urgent. "Just long enough to get out of this station. Then you can fight on your terms." Clara's hand found Elena's, squeezing gently. "She's right, Elena. We can't fight from in here. Let's do what we need to do and go home." Elena wanted to argue, to scream that they shouldn't have to bow to anyone. But Clara's eyes, calm and steady, reminded her what was at stake. Their life together, their home. Their love was worth more than pride. She nodded, her throat tight. "Okay. But this isn't over." Reyes gave a small, approving nod. "Good. I'll arrange for Hargrove to come in. Keep it short, keep it civil. I'll be there to make sure it doesn't go off the rails." As Reyes left to make the arrangements, Elena turned to Clara, her voice low. "I hate this. I hate that we have to do this." Clara's smile was small but fierce. "I know. But we're not apologizing for who we are. We're just getting through this moment. We'll show them who we are later." The door opened again and Mrs. Hargrove stepped in, her presence like a cold wind. She was in her 50s, impeccably dressed in a navy blazer and pearls, her lips pursed in disapproval. Jenkins followed, his smirk back in full force. Reyes brought up the rear, her expression unreadable but her posture tense. Hargrove stood at the head of the table, looking down at Elena and Clara like they were insects. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "I'm waiting." Elena's stomach churned, but Clara spoke first, her voice steady. "We're sorry if our actions offended you, Mrs. Hargrove. That wasn't our intention." The words were like ash in Elena's mouth, but she forced herself to nod. "Yeah. We didn't mean to cause trouble." Hargrove's eyes narrowed, clearly unsatisfied. "You think that's enough? You've disrespected this town, our values." "Enough," Riz cut in, her voice sharp. "They've apologized. You got what you wanted. Let's move on." Hargrove's face reddened, but Reyes' stare didn't waver. Jenkins shifted, clearly itching to intervene, but Reyes' authority held the room. After a tense moment, Hargrove huffed and turned to Jenkins. "Fine. Drop the complaint. But I won't forget this." She stormed out, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Jenkins glared at Reyes, then at Elena and Clara, but he followed Hargrove without a word. Carter, still by the door, looked visibly relieved. Reyes turned to them, her voice low. "You're free to go. I'll handle the paperwork." Elena's legs felt weak with relief, but her anger still burned. "That's it? We're just supposed to walk out like nothing happened?" Reyes met her gaze, her eyes steady. "You walk out and you keep living. That's how you win." Clara stood, pulling Elena with her. "Thank you," she said to Reyes, her voice soft but sincere. "For everything." Reyes nodded, but her eyes lingered on them, a flicker of something unspoken passing through. As they walked out of the holding room, Elena felt the weight of the night lift, but only slightly. They were free, but the battle wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The morning air was crisp as Elena and Clara stepped out of the police station, the first rays of sunlight warming their faces. They held hands tightly, their fingers intertwined like a lifeline. The town of Willow Creek stretched out before them, quiet and unassuming, as if it hadn't just tried to break them. Elena's truck was still parked where they'd left it, a few blocks from the creek. They walked in silence, the weight of the night still heavy on their shoulders. Clara's blonde hair caught the light, and Elena couldn't help but think how beautiful she was, even after everything. "You okay?" Elena asked, her voice rough with emotion. Clara nodded, her blue eyes bright with unshed tears. "We made it. That's what matters." They reached the truck, and Elena pulled Clara into a fierce hug, burying her face in her hair. "I love you," she whispered, the words a vow against the world. "No one's taking that from us." Clara pulled back, her smile soft but fierce. "No one." As they drove home, Elena's mind kept drifting to Reyes. She'd risked everything, her job, her place in this town, to stand up for them. It wasn't just about the complaint. Reyes had seen them, really seen them, and she'd chosen to act. Elena didn't know her story, but she felt a connection, a shared understanding of what it meant to fight for who you were. Back at their apartment, they collapsed onto the couch, the familiar comfort of their space wrapping around them like a blanket. Clara curled into Elena's side, her head resting on her chest. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice quiet. Elena thought for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on Clara's arm. "We live. We love. We don't hide." Clara nodded, but her eyes were distant. "What about Reyes?" "She's still in there, dealing with Jenkins and Hargrove." Elena's jaw tightened. "She's tougher than she looks. But we owe her. Big time." The next day, they heard through the grapevine that Reyes had been suspended. The official reason was insubordination, but everyone knew it was because she'd challenged Hargrove and Jenkins. The news hit Elena like a punch. She wanted to storm back to the station to demand answers, but Clara stopped her. "She did this for us," Clara said, her voice firm. "We honor that by doing something with it." They decided to act. Elena and Clara started talking to friends, to neighbors, to anyone who would listen. They shared their story, not just of the night at the station, but of their love, their life, their right to exist. At first, the town resisted, but slowly cracks appeared. A few locals spoke up, admitting they'd been wrong to judge. Others shared their own stories of hiding who they were. Willow Creek wasn't changing overnight, but it was a start. A week later, they found Reyes at a diner on the edge of town, her badge gone but her head held high. Elena slid into the booth across from her, Clara beside her. "Heard what happened," Elena said, her voice soft. "You didn't have to do that." Reyes shrugged, a small smile playing on her lips. "Yeah, I did. I've been hiding too long. Seeing you two, it reminded me who I want to be." Clara reached across the table, her hand covering Reyes. "You're not alone. Not anymore." Reyes' eyes glistened, but she didn't pull away. "Thanks," she said, her voice thick. "That means more than you know." As they left the diner, Elena and Clara walked hand in hand, the weight of the past week still there but lighter now. They've faced hate and come out stronger. Reyes' brave act, standing up to a system that thrived on fear, had given them a chance to fight another day. And they would. For themselves, for Reyes, for everyone who'd ever felt like they didn't belong. The sun was setting over Willow Creek, casting a warm glow over the town that had tried to break them. Elena pulled Clara close, their lips meeting in a kiss that was both a defiance and a promise. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. And no one, not Jenkins, not Hargrove, not the whole damn town, could take that away. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.